Have you ever wondered why so many people cannot stand being alone, even for a few minutes? Because the moment the noise disappears, something uncomfortable begins. There is no audience to impress, no distractions to hide behind, no escape from your own mind, only your thoughts. And for most people, that silence feels heavier than any crowd. The average person rarely questions what they believe. They rarely examine why they feel what they feel. Instead of investigating their emotions, they obey them. Instead of challenging the stories they tell themselves about life, they accept them without resistance. They react first and reflect later, if they reflect at all. Niccolò Machiavelli understood this weakness centuries ago. He recognized that people are often ruled by emotions they barely understand. Pride convinces them they are always right. Fear distorts their judgment. Desire quietly pulls them toward decisions they mistake for free will. And because few people are willing to examine themselves honestly, their behavior becomes remarkably predictable. But rare minds use solitude differently. They do not run from discomfort. They sit with it. They question their own assumptions instead of protecting them. They observe their emotions instead of becoming prisoners to them. They remain calm inside uncertainty, while others desperately search for comforting answers. Even when reality bruises their ego, they would rather face the truth than hide behind illusion. This is where dangerous intelligence begins. It does not announce itself. It does not crave validation or compete for attention. It watches, it listens, it learns. The deeper you understand your own mind, the more clearly you begin to understand everyone else's. You notice hidden motives, emotional blind spots, and the fears concealed beneath confidence. And once you truly understand human nature, controlling you becomes almost impossible. If you secretly practice these 6 habits when no one is watching, your mind already operates differently from most people around you. Before we begin, leave this affirmation in the comments. My mind stays sharp. Now let's begin. Number 1. Question your own certainty. The greatest prison is not built with walls. It is built with certainty. Most people never chase the truth. They chase comfort. They collect opinions that make them feel intelligent, righteous, or safe. The moment an idea becomes part of their identity, they stop investigating it. From that point forward, they are no longer thinking. They are defending. That is where dangerous intelligence separates itself from ordinary intelligence. The average mind protects beliefs. A disciplined mind tests them. Ask yourself a question few people are brave enough to face. What if I'm wrong? Simple words, brutal consequences. Because the moment you question your own conclusions, you invite uncertainty into your mind. Your confidence shakes. Your ego feels threatened. Suddenly there are no easy answers, only uncomfortable possibilities. Most people retreat the instant that discomfort appears. They would rather preserve certainty than discover reality. But the strongest minds understand something different. A comfortable illusion is still an illusion. And illusions have consequences. Believe the wrong person, and trust becomes a weapon against you. Believe the wrong story about yourself, and you spend years repeating the same mistakes without realizing why. Every false assumption quietly shapes your decisions until it shapes your life. That is why intelligent people spend time challenging themselves in private, not to sound wise, to become wiser. After difficult conversations, they replay the details. Did I misunderstand their intention? Did my emotions speak louder than the facts? Am I defending the truth or simply protecting my pride? Those questions are uncomfortable. That is exactly why they matter. Most people never ask them. The ego has a remarkable talent. It can rewrite reality to protect itself. Instead of admitting error, it invents excuses. Instead of accepting evidence, it searches for confirmation. Instead of learning, it argues. Machiavelli understood this pattern well. He observed that people are rarely defeated by reality itself. They are defeated by the distorted picture of reality created by fear, pride, and desire. Once emotion begins controlling perception, manipulation becomes effortless. Tell someone what they desperately want to hear, and they may trust you immediately. Challenge a cherished belief, and many will reject you before they examine your words. That is the influence of ego, not reason, not intelligence. Ego. But people who regularly question themselves become extremely difficult to deceive. They are loyal to evidence, not appearances. The moment new information changes the situation, they change with it. That kind of flexibility is rare. Most people think admitting they were wrong means losing. It doesn't. Remaining wrong because pride refuses to move, that is the real defeat. Every mistaken belief you abandon sharpens your judgment. Every uncomfortable truth you accept expands your awareness. Every assumption you dismantle weakens the grip your ego has over your mind. The process is painful. Growth usually is. But pain creates clarity, and clarity changes everything. You stop confusing confidence with competence. You stop judging people by words alone. You begin noticing contradictions that once escaped your attention. Most importantly, you stop deceiving yourself. That is where real psychological strength begins. Truth has never cared about your comfort. Reality does not negotiate with your emotions. It simply waits for you to notice it. Those willing to face it gain an advantage that cannot be borrowed, purchased, or faked. Because the rarest form of intelligence is not knowing more than everyone else. It is having the courage to challenge the person you were yesterday. Number 2, master your emotions before they master you. It happens in seconds. One insult, one cold glance, one unexpected rejection. Suddenly your breathing changes, your thoughts race, your mind starts creating stories that may not even be true. This is where most people lose, not because someone else defeated them, because their emotions took control first. A dangerous mind follows one rule. Your first emotion is not your final truth. Most people never question what they feel. Anger demands revenge. Fear demands escape. Anxiety demands certainty. They obey immediately, believing every emotion deserves action. It doesn't. Emotion is information, not instruction. The moment something disturbs them, intelligent people do something different. They pause, not because they are weak, because they refuse to surrender control. That pause creates power. Instead of asking, "How should I respond?" they ask, "Why did this affect me?" That question changes everything. Maybe the criticism exposed an insecurity. Maybe the jealousy came from comparison. Maybe the frustration revealed an expectation you never questioned. Your emotions often expose what your ego tries to hide. That is why self-observation is more valuable than self-defense. Machiavelli understood that pressure reveals character. Under emotion, people stop hiding. Their words become careless. Their decisions become impulsive. Their deepest fears quietly surface. Watch an angry person. They reveal where they are vulnerable. Watch someone desperate for approval. They reveal what controls them. Watch someone become defensive. They reveal the belief they fear losing. Emotion always leaves clues. The calm observer notices them. That is why emotional discipline creates invisible power. People who cannot control themselves become predictable, and predictable people become easy to manipulate. Push the right emotional trigger, and they react every time. Praise controls them. Criticism controls them. rejection controls them. Their behavior no longer belongs to them. It belongs to whoever understands their weaknesses. Disciplined people break that pattern. They create space between emotion and action. Inside that space, judgment returns. A calm person chooses. An emotional person reacts. That difference changes everything. Real strength is not feeling less. It is reacting less. Highly intelligent people rarely make important decisions in emotional moments because temporary emotions often create permanent consequences. One sentence spoken in anger can destroy years of trust. One decision made in fear can reshape an entire future. The price is simply too high. Instead, they study themselves. They identify what triggers insecurity. They notice what steals their focus. They recognize the situations that make them irrational. Then they work on those weaknesses instead of pretending they don't exist. Most people blame difficult people. Intelligent people examine difficult reactions. That shift creates freedom. You cannot control every insult. You cannot stop every manipulation. You cannot eliminate pressure from life. But you can stop giving those things control over your mind. Machiavelli understood that emotion clouds perception. Pride blinds judgment. Fear magnifies danger. Desire distorts logic. Calmness does the opposite. It sharpens perception. It uncovers hidden motives. It sees opportunities where panic sees only problems. That is why the calmest person in the room often holds the greatest advantage. Not because they speak more, because they observe more. Never confuse emotional discipline with emotional suppression. Suppressing emotion hides it. Understanding emotion transforms it. The more deeply you understand your own emotional patterns, the less anyone can use them against you. And when people can no longer provoke your anger, exploit your fear, or manipulate your need for approval, they begin losing their influence over you. That is where dangerous intelligence truly begins. Before we continue, leave this affirmation in the comments. Calm mind, clear judgment. Number 3, turn pain into perception. Most people experience pain once. Intelligent people experience it twice. The first time they live through it. The second time they study it. That is the difference. Most people run from painful memories. They bury betrayal. They avoid humiliation. They distract themselves from failure and convince themselves the past no longer matters. But it does. The dangerous mind returns to those moments in silence. Not to suffer again. To understand. At first, this looks like overthinking. It isn't. It is pattern recognition. They replay an old betrayal and suddenly notice what they missed years ago. A forced smile. A promise that never matched the actions. A warning sign ignored because emotion clouded judgment. One forgotten detail changes the entire story. And once you see it, you never look at people the same way again. Comfort rarely teaches wisdom. Pain does. Machiavelli understood that pressure reveals character. Loyalty changes when personal gain appears. Kindness changes when power shifts. Respect often disappears the moment fear is gone. Most people learn these lessons emotionally. Intelligent people learn them strategically. Instead of asking, "Why did this happen to me?" they ask better questions. Why did I trust too quickly? What warning did I ignore? How did my emotions distort my judgment? Those questions transform experience into awareness, and awareness becomes intelligence. That is why betrayal changes thoughtful people differently, not only emotionally, psychologically. After deception, they stop judging people by words alone. They begin watching behavior. They notice contradictions earlier. They recognize hidden motives faster. Pain sharpens perception when you choose to learn from it. Most people remember the wound. Intelligent people remember the lesson. That difference changes everything, because life repeats itself. The same personalities return wearing different faces. The same manipulation appears through different relationships. The same emotional traps wait for those who never reflect. But people who study the past recognize danger sooner. Control becomes easier to spot. Dishonesty becomes harder to hide. Emotional games lose their surprise. That is not cynicism. It is awareness. Machiavelli warned that blind trust often disguises weakness. Honest people expect honesty. Loyal people expect loyalty. Kind people expect fairness. Reality makes no such promise. Manipulation often wears the face of charm. Self-interest often hides behind generosity. Some people seem trustworthy only while trust benefits them. Understanding this does not make you paranoid. It makes you observant. There is a difference. Paranoia assumes everyone is dangerous. Awareness accepts that human behavior changes under temptation, pressure, fear, and opportunity. That understanding creates maturity. Instead of becoming bitter, intelligent people, become more analytical. They stop asking only, "Why did this hurt?" They begin asking, "What does this reveal about people, about themselves?" Every painful experience contains information. Failure exposes weakness. Humiliation teaches humility. Betrayal strengthens observation. Regret builds responsibility. But only if you are willing to examine it honestly. Most people never do. They blame luck. They blame timing. They blame everyone except themselves. Intelligent people do the opposite. They examine their own decisions. They identify the blind spots that made them vulnerable. They accept uncomfortable truths before life forces them to repeat the lesson. That kind of reflection builds powerful self-awareness. Eventually, pain stops looking like punishment. It starts looking like education. Not every lesson arrives gently. Some arrive through disappointment, some through deception, some through loss. But every lesson leaves behind knowledge for those willing to face reality instead of escaping it. That is why highly intelligent people often become calmer after hardship, not weaker. They understand people more clearly, they trust more carefully, they observe more patiently, and most importantly, they refuse to let the same illusion deceive them twice. Most people try to erase painful memories. Dangerous minds preserve them because memory fades. But the lesson should never disappear. Top of form number 4. Stay curious about what everyone else ignores. The most intelligent people are often fascinated by things everyone else considers useless. Most people only pay attention to information with an obvious reward. If it cannot make them money, improve their status, or solve an immediate problem, they quickly lose interest. Intelligent people operate differently. Their curiosity is not driven by usefulness. It is driven by understanding. They willingly spend hours studying ancient wars, psychological experiments, historical betrayals, interrogation techniques, philosophy, body language, persuasion, power structures, or criminal behavior, not because they want to impress people, because they want to understand how the world really works. More importantly, how people really work. Machiavelli understood something that remains true today. Technology evolves, societies change, empires rise and fall, but human nature barely changes. Fear, greed, ambition, jealousy, pride, desire. The world changes. Human instincts do not. That is why intelligent people study many different subjects. History teaches them how power shifts. Philosophy reveals how beliefs shape decisions. Psychology explains hidden motives. Strategy exposes recurring patterns. Slowly, these ideas begin connecting. And once they connect, people become easier to understand. That is where dangerous intelligence quietly develops. Because knowledge that seems unrelated often reveals the same truth from different directions. Study history long enough, and you discover that crowds react emotionally long before they think logically. Study psychology, and you realize confidence is not always competence. Study leadership, and you learn that power rarely changes character. It reveals it. These lessons do not come from one book or one experience. They come from years of curiosity. Most people never reach that point. The moment information becomes difficult, uncomfortable, or offers no immediate benefit, they stop learning. Curious minds do the opposite. Complexity attracts them. Because every difficult question strengthens the mind. They never accept surface-level explanations. Whenever they hear a story, they ask, what motive is hiding underneath this? Whenever they watch people interact, they wonder, who actually holds the emotional power here? That habit builds something extremely valuable, pattern recognition. And pattern recognition is one of the most dangerous forms of intelligence. Once you begin seeing patterns, human behavior becomes far more predictable. You recognize manipulation sooner. You notice insecurity faster. You detect dishonesty through small inconsistencies. Meanwhile, most people continue judging appearances. Machiavelli warned against this mistake. People trust words instead of behavior. They mistake confidence for competence. They admire image instead of studying intention. Curious minds rarely remain trapped by appearances. Because curiosity trains observation, the more they study psychology, persuasion, leadership, conflict, history, and human nature, the more they understand what truly drives people. Some are controlled by attention, others by fear, others by validation. And once you understand those hidden motivations, you begin understanding influence itself. That is why intelligent people enjoy learning in private. They do not need recognition. Understanding is already the reward. Over time, every subject strengthens another. History explains politics. Psychology explains manipulation. Philosophy explains behavior. Strategy explains power. Piece by piece, reality becomes clearer. Patterns emerge where others see coincidence. That is why curiosity should never be underestimated. Most people only look at what is directly in front of them. Intelligent people always look beneath it. And the more they understand history, emotion strategy, and human nature, the less surprised they become by the way people behave. Because a curious mind eventually sees patterns that ordinary minds never notice. Number 5. Correct your thinking before reality corrects it. Most people would rather defend a lie than admit they were wrong. That single habit explains more human behavior than most people realize. The average person becomes emotionally attached to an opinion almost immediately. Once the ego adopts an idea, changing direction feels like defeat. So instead of adjusting to reality, they protect their image. They argue longer, excuse mistakes, ignore evidence, pretend certainty even when doubt already exists inside them. Slowly, judgment begins to collapse. Machiavelli understood that rigid thinking is weakness. The person who refuses to adapt becomes predictable, and predictable people are easy to control. That is why intelligent people value accuracy more than pride. The moment reality changes, they change with it. immediately. They waste no energy defending false assumptions simply to protect their ego. If new evidence exposes a flaw, they abandon the old belief and move forward. Simple, but incredibly rare, because most people experience being wrong as an attack on their identity. Instead of treating correction as growth, they experience it as humiliation. Their ego turns learning into a battle. Intelligent people see the opposite. To them, remaining wrong is far more dangerous than admitting it. That mindset creates extraordinary flexibility. They can stop in the middle of an argument and quietly think, perhaps my perspective is incomplete. They can watch reality shift without emotionally collapsing. They do not cling to old conclusions simply because pride demands consistency. Life changes constantly. People change. Power changes. Circumstances change. Rigid minds cannot keep up. They continue using yesterday's thinking to solve today's problems. Reality moves forward. They stay behind. Flexible thinkers survive because they adapt faster. Machiavelli respected adaptation more than certainty. Survival belongs to those who adjust, not those who insist. This principle applies everywhere. Some people remain trapped in toxic relationships because admitting the truth wounds their pride. Others continue making disastrous decisions because changing direction feels embarrassing. Many ignore obvious reality simply because their ego refuses to admit failure. Instead of correcting themselves early, they defend mistakes until the consequences become impossible to escape. Intelligent people choose differently. They constantly evaluate results. If something is no longer working, they reconsider. If better information appears, they update their thinking. If reality exposes weakness, they adapt. No drama, no excuses, only adjustment. That level of discipline is uncommon because the ego naturally resists change. It wants certainty. It wants to feel intelligent. It wants to be right. Admitting error creates temporary discomfort. But intelligent people understand something most never learn. Temporary discomfort prevents permanent damage. Refusing correction only strengthens illusion, and illusion eventually becomes failure. Pride is dangerous because it blinds perception. It convinces people they already know enough. It replaces curiosity with arrogance. Machiavelli understood that arrogance weakens judgment. The arrogant stop observing reality. They become loyal to their own image instead of the truth standing in front of them. Adaptable minds never make that mistake. They continue learning. They shift strategies when necessary. They abandon assumptions without hesitation. That makes them difficult to predict. And difficult people are difficult to control. Emotionally rigid individuals cannot do this. They value consistency more than accuracy. Intelligent people value reality above both. That is why they often appear calm when unexpected situations arise. Their identity is not built on always being right. It is built on seeing clearly. Every correction sharpens judgment. Every adjustment expands awareness. Every abandoned illusion strengthens perception. Learning is not humiliation. It is evolution. Most people stop growing because the ego interrupts the process. They accept only information that confirms existing beliefs. They reject uncomfortable truths before examining them. They become defensive instead of reflective. But dangerous intelligence requires flexibility. A weak mind breaks when reality changes. A strong mind adapts. That is why adaptability is one of the rarest forms of power. A flexible thinker cannot be manipulated easily. They are always observing, always adjusting, always improving. Meanwhile, stubborn people repeat the same predictable reactions again and again. And predictability always creates vulnerability. Never mistake correction for weakness. It is discipline. It means truth matters more than pride. Reality matters more than appearance. Growth matters more than comfort. Most people spend years protecting false beliefs because admitting error hurts. Intelligent people abandon those beliefs immediately because they know one truth. Remaining blind is far more dangerous than being wrong. Before we continue, leave this affirmation in the comments. Truth changes me. Number 6. Enjoy solitude. Master your own mind. Most people are not afraid of being alone. They are afraid of hearing their own thoughts. That is why they constantly surround themselves with noise, endless conversations, endless notifications, endless distractions. Silence removes every escape. And when the distractions disappear, the truth appears. Solitude exposes what busyness hides. It exposes emotional dependence. It exposes unresolved fear. It exposes the parts of yourself you have spent years avoiding. A person can escape self-awareness for a long time by staying constantly occupied. But sooner or later, silence arrives. And when it does, reality becomes impossible to outrun. Machiavelli understood a timeless truth. Anyone who depends on other people's approval eventually belongs to them. The need to be accepted weakens judgment. The fear of rejection changes behavior. The hunger for validation slowly replaces authenticity. People begin saying what others want to hear. They tolerate disrespect they should never accept. They betray their own standards simply to avoid standing alone. That is why emotionally independent people always seem different. They are comfortable thinking differently, comfortable standing apart, comfortable walking alone when necessary. Highly intelligent people build a strong relationship with solitude because solitude sharpens perception. Away from constant opinions, the mind becomes quieter, clearer, more honest. It can examine decisions without social pressure. It can question beliefs without needing permission. It can organize thoughts instead of reacting to everyone else's. That clarity becomes a hidden advantage. Many intelligent people spend hours alone reflecting on conversations, studying human behavior, reviewing their own choices, or questioning the direction of their lives. Not because they dislike people, because they value understanding more than constant stimulation. Most people never experience that level of clarity. They constantly seek reassurance, someone to agree with them, someone to praise them, someone to confirm they are enough. And the moment your confidence depends on someone else's approval, your freedom disappears. Approval becomes leverage. Praise becomes a reward. Rejection becomes a weapon. Manipulation suddenly becomes easy. A person desperate to be liked can be controlled through compliments. A person terrified of being abandoned can be controlled through fear. A person addicted to validation eventually sacrifices truth just to keep belonging. The disciplined mind refuses that trade. It slowly learns one powerful lesson. The less approval you need, the more difficult you become to control. That realization changes everything. You stop explaining every decision. You stop chasing everyone's understanding. You stop trying to convince people who have already chosen not to understand you. Instead, your confidence becomes internal, quiet, stable, unaffected by every opinion around you. This does not mean intelligent people never feel lonely. They do, but they understand the difference between loneliness and chosen solitude. Loneliness says something is missing. Solitude says nothing is missing. One feels empty, the other feels complete. That difference changes the way you move through life. People who enjoy their own company leave unhealthy relationships sooner. They recognize disrespect earlier. They refuse to stay where they are not valued because they are no longer choosing between pain and being alone. They have already made peace with being alone. That freedom cannot be purchased. It must be earned. Machiavelli knew that crowds often reward conformity more than wisdom. Many people follow simply because everyone else does. They mistake popularity for truth, status for character, confidence for competence. The independent mind refuses to follow blindly. It observes before trusting, questions before believing, reflects before reacting. Solitude strengthens every one of those habits. It creates distance from emotional noise, distance from constant influence, distance from the pressure to perform. Inside that silence, awareness grows. Your motives become clearer. Your emotional patterns become clearer. Other people's intentions become easier to recognize. Because a quiet mind notices what a distracted mind misses. That is why truly intelligent people protect their solitude, not because they fear people, because they understand its value. Most people spend their lives trying to escape themselves. Rare minds become stronger by understanding themselves. And once you become completely comfortable with your own company, other people lose the ability to control your emotions. Most people will spend their entire lives without ever truly knowing themselves. They react before they think. They defend their ego instead of questioning it. They chase comfort instead of seeking truth. And because of that, they remain predictable. Predictable people are easy to influence, easy to manipulate, easy to control. Machiavelli understood one of the oldest laws of power. The person who understands other people gains influence. But the person who understands both human nature and their own mind becomes almost impossible to control. That is where dangerous intelligence begins. It is not loud. It does not need attention. It does not waste time proving how intelligent it is. It listens more than it speaks. It observes more than it reacts. It learns more than it argues. While most people rush to judge every situation, the dangerous mind steps back. It watches. It questions. It waits. Because awareness always sees what emotion misses. That is why solitude strengthens it instead of frightening it. Silence becomes a classroom, not a prison. That is why betrayal makes it wiser instead of bitter. Failure makes it sharper instead of weaker. Pressure reveals discipline instead of panic. Every difficult experience becomes another lesson, another pattern, another piece of truth. Slowly, the mind changes. The moment you begin questioning your own beliefs, your ego loses its grip. The moment you investigate your emotions instead of obeying them, your reactions become choices. The moment you study your past instead of running from it, your mistakes become strategy. The moment you become endlessly curious, the world begins revealing patterns hidden from everyone else. The moment you learn to correct your thinking without defending your pride, growth accelerates. And the moment you become comfortable being alone, other people's approval loses its power over you. This is why self-awareness is so rare. It demands humility, discipline, patience, the courage to face uncomfortable truths. Most people never make that journey. They spend their lives trying to escape themselves. Rare people spend their lives understanding themselves. And that difference changes everything. Because once you understand yourself, your emotions no longer control your judgment. Once you understand human nature, manipulation becomes easier to recognize. Once you no longer depend on validation, fear loses one of its strongest weapons. That is real freedom. Quiet, invisible, powerful. If this video challenged the way you think, make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and share it with someone who values truth over comfort and awareness over illusion. Because in the end, ordinary intelligence searches for certainty. Dangerous intelligence searches for reality, and reality always belongs to the person brave enough to face it. And once you truly understand both your own mind and human nature, you become incredibly difficult to manipulate, deceive, or control. People can only exploit the weaknesses you refuse to see. The moment you recognize them, they begin losing their power over you. That is the quiet advantage of dangerous intelligence. It is built through awareness, strengthened by discipline, protected by truth. Before you leave, drop this final affirmation in the comments. Awareness makes me dangerous, bottom of form.